Thanks very much, Ian, and good evening, everyone. Really good to be back again, and thank you for making the time to join us. Just a quick agenda for tonight. Those are the things that we'll cover. So I'll give you a quick update of how we're going around age grade affiliation to start with. We'll then hopefully hear from Neil. That is the plan. We want to try and, as we've done before on these meetings, is share how clubs are actually doing this, so it's much more real for you rather than us talking from a theoretical point of view. So we'll hear from Bude there. A little bit about regulation and where we are now in the season in relation to the age grade regulations. Then Chloe will come in and talk us through some of the technical bits around the game management system and some of the FAQs that we've been having on affiliation and where you can find those answers. And then obviously any other further help and support through the help portal, etc. And Ian will talk at the end just about our incentive program as well, to support people to actually address their affiliation and do their best to try and achieve at least what they achieved last year. We'll talk about that later on as well. So just as Ian has said, any questions as we go along, please pop them in the chat and we'll be ready to answer those as well. So just the first thing, and this first slide gives you an idea of really, and as you can see there just on the right hand side, again a really fantastic effort by everyone right across the age grade game, and a massive thank you of course from us in terms of where we are so far. So we've got 137,000 affiliated players, and a really good number of those are girls as well as boys affiliating as well. 40,000 of them are brand new affiliations, so that's mainly in the younger age groups, as it always is every year, but some of those are also, we can see where clubs have really picked up the baton this year, and affiliated new players. So a really good effort there from everyone from those first time affiliations, which do take a little bit longer of course because they need to be okayed by the club as well. But our renewals are brilliant. We're almost at 100,000 renewals now from last year. Those are people who have re-affiliated, who have affiliated in 21-22. So we're at 97,000 there. And then we're well ahead of where we were at this point last year. And our decision, based on feedback from you and from clubs right across the country, to start the affiliation process earlier in the summer has really given us a chance to get ahead. We've got 35,000 more players affiliated at this point than were affiliated last year, right across over 850 clubs. So a really strong start to the process. And what we've also done here on the left hand side, we've shared some of the top 5 clubs that have increased their numbers of affiliations last year and have all made a real effort to add to and improve what they've done. And you'll see at number 5 there, Neil's club, Bude. So we'll hear about how they've done that a bit more in a second. But a really good effort, and there are plenty more clubs like this who have really thrown themselves into making sure they're in line with the regulations, that they've got their players affiliated on GMS this season, which has been brilliant. And just we thought it was worth sharing as well the county areas. So our CBs are our county areas, and comparing with last year, Kent, Somerset, Warwickshire and Notts, Links and Derbyshire have all surpassed what they've done last year already, and by quite significant numbers as well. So they've done some really good leadership in helping their clubs to achieve that as well. And just over on the right hand side there, really important, we put some extra resource into our help desk and service desk this year, and you can see actually that the impact there on the time that clubs and others and parents are having to wait for solutions is significantly down by half, and also the response rate as well is down by half. So really pleased with how we've tried to help clubs to do this process, and also parents as well. So a really good start. There's more to go. We know there's more affiliations out there. Just a reminder, we had just over 150,000 last year affiliated players, but that was right through the whole season. And we're into a really key period now to try and finish off those affiliations, which I'll talk about a bit more in a second. So that's how it looks at this point in time. And if I just click, oh, I've gone too far. As I said earlier, really the news from a number of clubs has been brilliant. And you may have heard from us before. We talked to Farnham, and then we talked to Chester, so a London-based club and a Northwest-based club. We're going down to the Southwest tonight to talk to Neil from Bude. Neil, great to have you on the call. and thanks very much for joining. Is the lightning still flashing out the window, or is it?
Yeah, I'm on the 4G as well, so I shouldn't go this time.
Right, we'll do our best. If you do go, we'll wait till you come back in. Thanks very much for joining us, Neil. And I know you've done some significant work last year. We were in touch sort of at this point last year, actually, weren't we? First time, about how could we help Bude. And you've done some significant work to build your affiliations this year. Do you want to just tell us that first question there? How have you worked with your parents? How have you built, affiliation as something that you want them to do and get their buy-in?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because I don't think we really sell it. I just think we knew it's not going to go away. I think we just sold it to the parents, that now that they've taken over their affiliation themselves, and been doing that for a while now, that they really needed to buy into it, and we really did promote it, and using the help. It's just, I think once they realize that we're selling it, that they have to get involved, and it's not going to go away, and it's going to be very helpful tool. They don't take much convincing. No,
that's good. And do you have you done any sort of specific promotion around affiliation, or do you package it up as part of the season starting? These are the things that as parents and as a club we need to do.
Yeah, there's a big carrot of when the season starts. Obviously, I did do a promotion because the GMS obviously opened early, which for me was very handy.
Yeah,
got me used to the system, and meant that I had time to experiment and look and see through the system. And we did go through the route of buying membership through the GMS. Yeah.
Great.
And so to buy the membership, you have to be affiliated as well and have an account, and that really helped.
Great. Yeah, we've heard that from a number of clubs as well. Not all clubs are using the membership module, but those that do it helps to combine the two in terms of the messaging as well. So that's good to hear. And just a second question there, Neil. When a parent does come and say, look, I've got a bit of a problem, could you give me a hand? How do you help them? You mentioned directing to the help portal. Do you have people in the club who specifically do that? How does that work? Well,
yeah, we've taken it over, and we've shared the load. I'll come on to that a little bit later. The help portal has really, keeps updating all the time. We promote the guides and then share them around with different groups, and coaches are on different groups. So we just post that to the different coaches, and then they can then send that off to the parents. So the help portal was very helpful, actually.
Great. So you're actually team working, it sounds like, with others in the club, the coaches, team managers, etc.
Yeah, I mean, you've got if you're on the GMS and you're a player registrar, you really need to know the system yourself as well. It's worth spending time. It does take time, and there are little quirky avenues that you follow, and then you get used to the system. But if you know the system, it's very easy then to help sell it and advise the parents who first see it. They see it for the first time sometimes. But if you can have good knowledge, and then that builds confidence.
Great. And I know, Neil, one of the things that we did do with you is identified a training need, and you had one of our GMS support trainers, didn't you, came and did some work with the club?
Yeah, that was really helpful. Myself and Jodie, who's the age grade secretary, who's done an enormous amount of work in Bude this season to get us into the 5th spot. We had that webinar, and then we'd also, I think you'd sent me some links to help me before then. I think we spoke over email and went through the help portal so that we were up to speed before the webinar, and then we could go to the webinar with any questions as well that we had.
Great, that's good. Yeah, Ian will talk a little bit more about the support trainers again, just a reminder for everyone later on. So just the final one there, Neil, if there's two really key bits of advice you could give to those on the call and those that will watch the recording of this, what would they be?
Well, imbued, I think we've progressed this season because we've spread the load of the GMS. We had one lady, our secretary, Helen, who has always been doing with a little help all the age grade affiliation. And it's when you're 200, I think we're 200 and something kids. That's a lot to try to keep on top of.
Yeah.
So that's a good piece of advice, is to try to spread it up. So I look after the girls, and then Jodie looks after the rest, the lads, and then there's another one. Helen looks after the adults. So that gives us, and we all communicate together as well, which is key actually. Great,
that's good. And your second bit of advice?
Well, we just sell it. Just showing, I'm obviously convinced that the GMS is going to be more involved as the seasons go on, the future for registering players and getting their history, especially when it comes to things like concussion. I think personally that we'll be using the GMS, and as it gets easier to use and we iron out more problems, that it's a tool that will be really useful.
Yeah, great, that's good. So it sounds like you've significantly increased things this year in terms of what you've done, and it's great to hear that there's a real sort of team effort in the club as well. That is a very consistent thing that we hear from clubs, that you need people who are experts, but you need everyone else to be able to support that as well. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be prepared to spend a lot of time. I spoke to Jodie a couple of days ago, and she was doing a bit of a email data clear up, and she'd been trying to get email response cleaned up, and she'd been on it for 3 hours, which is quite typical. Sometimes you can lose time, but yeah, you go spend the time, but then you get the rewards afterwards.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Neil. It's great to hear from you. Well done on getting online, and thanks very much for everything you've done to push the affiliation and to share that. Clearly we're also looking at the other clubs who have shared things with us before as well, and seeing how much we can try and push that information out as well. We've got some video stuff coming together for that. So really good to hear from you. Thanks for your time, Neil, and really well done to you and everyone at the club. And clearly Jodie and Helen have been big players in that as well, in terms of your age grade affiliation. So great to hear from you. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you.
So just moving on, the final bit from me before Chloe comes in, it's just a bit of a reminder here to everybody about where we are in terms of the season, our age grade affiliations. And this is what the regulation says in Regulation 15 around annual affiliation of age grade players. So there's that 45 day, 6-week period at the beginning of the season, and that's from when a player starts to play their age grade rugby. And of course, for many of the existing players who'd be renewals, that they would have started right at the beginning of the season. But of course, that period for new players particularly, it allows that opportunity for people to try the game, to try it out, to test whether they want to be part of the game or not over a 6-week period, rather than you asking them for their affiliation as soon as they arrive. So clearly having that information once they've made their decision is really important around safeguarding, and as Neil says, being able to sort of monitor how your numbers are going, your age groups that are looking really good, the age groups where there might be a challenge, etc. But that's the regulation, and we're right in that point now, aren't we, of 45 days from the start of the season, which started at the beginning of September, which is why we're now we're talking directly to more clubs that have still got a lot of pending affiliations, or big clubs that we know haven't managed to get their affiliation numbers done yet. So there's a little bit more of a targeted approach on that at the moment, because of course what we don't want clubs to find themselves in a situation where they're exposed because they're not in line with regulation. And as many of you will be aware, if there's issues around potential issues around insurance or funding and things like that if clubs aren't in regulation. So we're just trying to make sure that we're helping and supporting those clubs who haven't managed to get their regulations get their affiliations underway yet. Within that 45-day period, we're helping them to try and make sure they can do that, so they don't find themselves exposed in if there was any sort of incident or anything at the club. So that you'll see more information coming through about that, and for those clubs that need some help, we'll talk again in a second with Ian about how we can do that as well. So just trying to make sure that everyone make sure they're in line with the regulations and don't find themselves outside of that. So you'll see some of that information. We know many of the clubs on the call will already be well underway with theirs, but trying to just finish off the last few with that 45-day period now coming to an end is really important. So I'm going to hand over now to Chloe, who's going to talk through some of the FAQs and other bits and pieces. Over to you, Chloe.
Great, thank you. Hopefully you can all hear me. So I'm just going to go through, there's actually a help portal guide for this, which explains some of the new features and the tools that we actually brought in for this season. So just to reiterate, there wasn't any major changes to the age grade player affiliation process this year. So the journey is pretty much the same as previous season. And I think the figures that Mark has gone through, you know, the 137,000 player affiliations and new ones have seen that the user journey is hopefully we've simplified it and made it easy for parents and also for club admin. So there's been no major changes to that process. What we have done though is we have done some what we call minor enhancements to hopefully improve that user journey and also help those that do interact with the affiliation process, like club administrators, to hopefully support you guys. So what we've done is based on feedback. So we've got the new club checklist. We've also created the email affiliation instructions. So you can basically just email straight out to players or parents a set template, and you can chop and change that or edit as you want. So it saves you having to type it all up again. We've also got new tools as well, like the suspected concussion flag, and there's also some new reports as well that we brought out under org profile. So for example, we've got the new team listing. So that basically allows you to print off the basic information such as emergency contact details and medical conditions for affiliated and effectively registered players from team management, but it also allows you to do multiple teams at once. So if you've got a coach or a team manager and they've got level permission 2 or above to access org profile, and they can print off those reports for multiple teams as opposed to team management where you have to do it team by team. So hopefully little changes like that might actually will actually help and support you guys. More information is on that under the help portal guide. So we've got the player management module, lists those details there, and it's got a copy screenshot of the article there if you want to put in some keywords like what Neil was saying. Under the help portal, we really try to develop that. There's over 200 guides and articles on there. Some have videos, but the majority of the GMS ones will have step-by-step instructions, and you can send those to parents, to players, to other volunteers in your club, and you can also do feedback on those if you feel that we're missing it or it needs updating. So we do try to update them quite a lot. All of these changes and suggestions were brought on from listening to user groups that we've had in the past, also internal RFU suggestions from the local teams that I fed back again from clubs, plus GMS help desk tickets that we've had, and also based from Deloitte's suggestions when we discussed and reviewed a platform for rugby earlier this year and the end of last year. So moving on to some frequently asked questions that we get from age grade affiliation. So if you can just, thank you. So these are just some of the questions that we get out there. It's not all of the questions, but it's probably the most common questions that we get on the previous webinars that we've had, and also common questions that we get into the GMS service desk. So top question is obviously why do we have to affiliate annually? So it's really just an annual review that all the details are correct, that we have in the system, that we have in the records. Plus it's also an annual update should anybody want to change or edit their consents. And also for safeguarding purposes is to ensure that the medical conditions, especially for under 18s, are kept up to date. If they've had any injuries, if they've had any head case or concussion injuries, we need to be kept updated on those, really. There's a grayed out box or parents affiliating themselves in error. So if there's a grayed out box, which screenshot is on the top right there, that generally means that the person has logged into the child account. So currently at the moment, under 18s are not able to affiliate themselves, and it will show as grayed out. So all the parent needs to do is simply log in or reset their password if they've forgotten or they can't log in, just reset their password for themselves as the parental account or the guardian account, and that grey box shouldn't appear if they're over 18. So as long as they've got a date of birth in there, which again is another reason why we do ask date of birth, so that over 18s can actually affiliate themselves or can affiliate children. Also, the date of birth is another key that that person is a verified individual and that they are basically a separate individual. That's also why we do ask for all emails to be verified. So unfortunately, we don't allow shared emails anymore. They do have to be unique. And that's why we do ask for date of birth on parental accounts, is so that we know that that is a verified, unique individual. And for parents or guardians, that they are actually over 18, so they're able to consent for their children. Edits or changes. So we've actually allowed, and it's the bottom screen there, so we've actually enabled the ability for club administrators, which wasn't available last season and up to this point, to actually edit affiliations once they've been done by the parent or done by themselves. So once someone has actually affiliated or an age grade player has affiliated, the club administrator can now go into that record on people module, and they can edit the affiliation fields that they should they need to. So school fields are now editable. So that was a big issue that we've had in the past. So school fields can now be edited by club administrators. So that was a big feedback that we've listened to. The last question that we have is linking affiliation and memberships. So at the moment, they're not currently linked. So they are two separate processes. It is an aspiration for ours to have that linked at the moment. And with Platform for Rugby over the next couple of years, it is something that we're going to be looking at with the single sign-on, user portals and the marketplace. So it is something that we are trying to work towards. So that's the main questions that we get for age grade affiliation. They're the top ones, and not all of the questions. If you have any questions in the chat, myself or Ian can try and answer them, or we can answer them offline if we don't have time or we don't know, or you can come off mic at the end and ask the questions afterwards. The next screen is just going back over where to go to for further support and resources. So as Neil and myself have mentioned, we've got the help portal. So it is really the one-stop shop that has all the relevant materials that clubs will need, that you can provide onto parents and players, and share with other volunteers and provide feedback. Should you notice anything's out of date or an out of date screenshot, we do try to go through and edit them when we have releases and updates, so we can keep them there. We've also got the YouTube channel, so this will be where all these webinars will go. All the past ones, we've done some with, I think earlier in July, we did a step-by-step of affiliation for a parent and for the age grade registrar. So I think Ken was asking for that flow. So that flow is actually on that webinar. So that might be quite a useful one to look up. We've also got other social media channels, so that we've got Twitter, there is snippets of videos on the Facebook group as well. But yeah, so basically we do put in the links for this session afterwards into the YouTube webinar should you need it. And I'm going to hand over to Ian who's going to talk us through the GMS support trainers.
Conscious that a lot of you may have heard a bit of terminology that you may not be aware of there, such as platform for rugby, and what does that mean? But essentially, the platform for rugby is what we're doing at the RFU to create a better admin process and system for all involved in rugby, by making our system that we use to administer rugby being more intuitive. And we've got a bit of a plan around that, and we've took some feedback from Deloitte around that as well earlier in the year, and we're acting on those recommendations now. What Chloe will do is just pop a link into that if that interests you, just to give a bit more context and understanding around our future vision of where we're going with our rugby administration systems. And at the moment, we're obviously using the game management system to do that, but we do have plans to keep modernising and adapting as technology obviously moves fast and not at rates all the time. So worth having a look at that if you're interested. So I'm going to talk to you a bit around GMS, our GMS support trainers, and what support there is for you as club administrators around the age grade affiliation process. So we have a team of 9 casual support staff who are all from the game, and all have had varying degrees of knowledge and vast array of experience among the group there. We've got a director of sport in there at a public school and former professional player. We've got some people that have been using the system since it was actually created, and all are heavily involved in rugby clubs at different locations across the country. So really strong group of support team there. And how they're deployed, I'll just talk to you about that now. I might just move the slide. There we go. So at the moment, we are deploying through using our dashboards and our local intelligence. So when I say dashboards, we get data that shows us how many players are affiliating across the country, and we can see those differences, as Mark outlined earlier, and of which clubs are affiliating players and who aren't affiliating players, and who's made significant increases, etc. So we can target our support in that way, and we can see that from a club level and an overall constituent body level, so county level. And then we use our local intelligence. So by local intelligence I mean local RFU delivery team, so club and volunteer support managers, club developers, CB relationship managers, to feed into that insight to target where the need is. So that's how we initially started, and then new this week we've added in another layer, which is a club expression of interest, which joins the loop in the circle there, really, of where we can target our support to where it's needed most. So if you are looking for a session and you're stuck around age grade affiliation, they primarily deliver the sessions virtually, and they do that in a group setting, so with a number of clubs, or they'll do it as a one-to-one virtually, and in small cases a face-to-face if it's really required. But with the modern world we live in, we're finding that actually the virtual methods are working really well. And Neil obviously attended with Bude, I think St Agnes attended down in Cornwall as well, a session, an age grade affiliation session, just that really goes into a bit more detail than what we're describing on these webinars when we're really celebrating good practice. It's a real detailed session around what it is, how do I do it, chance to ask some questions to a support trainer who's highly knowledgeable, and it's a set session for about an hour. But we can be flexible, so it's worth, if you are struggling or if you think that your club will need some support, Chloe will pop the link in the chat for me, and it's an expression of interest form. You can pop it in and I can join the loops and then deploy a support trainer to you as soon as possible, and we can get that session arranged. So we do have the support there if needed. However, as Neil has alluded to, and Chloe, a lot of the support is online on our RFU YouTube channel, and also on the help portal with specifics around how to do things. So some really good resource out there that you can utilize within your clubs. And we've got some good mobile versions of how to complete an age grade affiliation for parents, and how to do it for if you're a new parent affiliating a child for the first time, or if you're renewing an affiliation. So it's some really good content there that will help support, and we've had some great feedback on those mobile versions, because let's face it, that's how parents access the internet. We all do on our smartphones now, don't we? So it's works really well. If you're doing a new age grade affiliation, it takes about just over 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. If you're renewing an affiliation, it takes 30 seconds. And it's that simple generally. Yeah, so if you aren't needing support, there's a link in the chat, and please do access that if you are struggling. We want to support clubs, we want to help clubs that are in need there. So there we go. I'll just, if you move that on, Mark. And then the final bit I wanted to talk to you about is just around incentives. So for this season, we have some incentives, one of them being a training session with an England rugby legend, and the other being some Umbro kit packages. So to be in with a chance as a club to win those prizes, your age grade affiliation numbers have to match or improve from last season, 21-22, and then you'll be entered into a draw, and a online random generator will select clubs to win those prizes. We will close that draw on Wednesday, the 14th of December. So there's still time to get cracking, get those affiliations in, but that's when that will close. And then hopefully some exciting incentives there to that will be of interest to the clubs that you're at. So just wanted to get that across to you guys. And now that brings us to a close of our presentation, but the chance now to ask any questions, come off mic. We're quite a small group actually, so happy for you to come off mic and ask any questions. You've got the 3 experts in the room here, and between us we will answer away for you.
Hi, this is Bill. Can anyone hear me? Hello?
Hi, yes.
You can, okay. So in my experience, we're a very small club. We have a thriving mini section. My experience is that parents on the whole are very responsive and want to affiliate their kids. The problem is that when they go to GMS, they find it difficult to navigate and difficult to use. I've used all of the tools and things I've put out on all the WhatsApp groups, the links to the various help pages, but still parents either affiliate themselves or make mistakes. So I'm not sure. I mean, I know you're doing a great job in terms of trying to make life as easy as possible, but that's the biggest challenge I've found.
Thanks for your feedback there, Bill. And yeah, understand. So we're trying to make, we've used all the feedback from last year, lessons learned, tried to implement those changes, and there will always be 1 or 2 at the moment that we're finding that have had those challenges that you've mentioned there, but always looking to improve and take on board feedback as well. And we're doing a bit of a lessons learned exercise for this year that will hopefully implement more changes into next year as well.
Can I
Ian,
just, sorry?
Ian, can I just add there quickly? I think one of the bits of feedback, and it was highlighted again by Neil in his piece there, Bill, is to have someone in the club who really knows it well, and we're hearing is a real benefit, so that if there are questions by parents, there's a quick and easy answer, as well as being able to say, look, we've got really good help tools for you, and then being understanding that they own the process and can go and find out those answers that just by following the help tools, I think is something as well. So it's trying to use what's available as much as possible, I think is the answer. Oh, and Neil, you've actually got your hand up to answer that as well.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Bill, it is. So I do get a lot of parents. We do get a lot of parents that find the GMS very hard to navigate, and I expect not so much now because we have many new members. I was getting messages, and I expect I was taking 10 phone calls where I've talked them through the process over the phone. You've got to know the system, and you've got to know the system between a mobile phone, that if they're using a mobile phone or a laptop, because two are very different. But once you've know the system and talked your way through once or twice, it's quite easy, and it's usually simple things, to be honest. Like they haven't saved their details.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the frightening thing is that I'm the most experienced person in our club, and that worries me.
We've also listened to people when we did the step-by-step instructions for parents affiliating. We only did it on a desktop or laptop version, so there should now be a mobile version as well. So there's a mobile step-by-step instruction, so that should hopefully help to pass that on to parents as well. So they've got the two options there, either a mobile device step-by-step instruction video, and also the screenshots, or they've got a laptop or a tablet device.
It sounds like you're doing a good job there, Bill. Philippa, I'm going to come to you first, and then Nicola, I saw you waving at me, so I'll come to Philippa first.
Thanks. Can I just check? Sorry, I haven't looked around at the concussion stuff yet. So, is there an option now to put in that first aid information on there? So on there on a tick box for a while, I'd noticed it, but just to be able to put that data directly in.
Yeah, so basically the suspected concussion, and there is a help portal article on this if you need more information, and we can put it in the chat later. But basically the suspected concussion tool is a tick box on the electronic match card, and then what will happen is a document that describes what they should do and also how they can safely return back to rugby is sent to the player. If the player is under 18, it's sent to their parent. It's also sent to the club's coach and the club's safeguarding officer, so everyone is aware of that. And then also under team management, and there's now got under export, under teams, you can now export that data as well, and you can see how many times they've actually been flagged for suspected concussion as well. Is actually available under teams now.
Okay, but that's only through, that has to be done through electronic match card.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my other query that I have asked previously is around when you're putting medical information on, it's more maybe the social emotional side of things that we're seeing more players, needing support around that.
Yeah.
It's maybe around that, because that's really useful. I know obviously hopefully each parent would go and speak to their coach independently, but it's just that side of things as well as the medical side, how you phrase that, because I think that has a big impact on coaches, the player themselves and their teammates. You know what I mean? So it's looking at the wider spectrum now, rather than the strictly asthma, heart problems, lung.
I mean, that medical condition, we don't enforce that, what you put in there. So you can use that. Obviously, you need to put that in for medical conditions like the asthma and anything like that. But also you can use it for, as you say, emotional conditions that you want to notify that coach or the team manager. There is also the option to put notes under a player's record as well, so that could be used by, as long as your club and everyone knows to use it, you could put extra notes in there that you don't want to list on medical conditions, because they do come up and print on exports and on reports. So if you want to keep it a little bit more sensitive as it is, you can put that under the notes in player records.
No, that's useful, thank you. But I just think sometimes it's the prompt, because if it just says medical, a lot of the time people will say, you know, okay, that's, you know, asthma, it's heart conditions, it's, you know, to me from that point of view. So sometimes it's the cues in that information, but that's useful. Thank you.
In terms of the language there, Philippa, we can look at that. So thank you. Where's my next one? Nicola.
Ian, sorry, Ian, can I just jump in quickly, because Amanda's put a message in just following up on the concussion point. That's the next step, Amanda, is how do we, outside of MatchCard, try and make that available to those who aren't using MatchCard, which you're right, the majority of the age grade game doesn't use MatchCard currently. So we're looking at could we utilize that concussion flag within the age grade friendly type game as well. So that sort of next stage, we wanted to do it on MatchCard first, but we're having a look at how we might be able to do that.
Thanks, Mark.
Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. Nicola, I'm going to come to you for your question, if you still have it. You're just on mute. So you just need to unmute, Nicola, bottom left.
Still muted. I'm still. Oh, there we go. That's it, Nicola.
Although we can't hear you. Which is really random. Do you want to type your question in the chat, Nicola, and I'll pull it out?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Sorry, I was so busy unmuting myself. I muted myself instead. Salisbury Rugby Club. I've been involved with GMS for 7 years. Has it been around longer than me? I'm not sure. The problem we've been struggling with this season is parents struggling to reset passwords. So I don't know if we've still got the old gremlin where emails that came through to Hotmail or BT email addresses don't even come through to spam, they just get lost. So not sure if that's still one of the problems. Another thing we struggle with is one season dad will do it, the next season mum will be helpful, she'll create a new ID, especially if they've moved house between the seasons. So it would be, you know, it's another thing of maybe if you've got somebody with the same name, same date of birth, and there's still a Salisbury address, maybe flag it up as a duplicate ID. And another thing is obviously on the team management, the admin managers can print off details about medical conditions to take with them to games where you wouldn't necessarily want to sort of be looking after a casualty and Googling GMS to work out their medical history. But our safeguarding officer has concerns about first aiders carrying that information. I suppose if you take out date of birth, then maybe it's not quite so sensitive. So thoughts on any of those?
Yeah, I can take a few of those. We can pass on your concern with regards to the safeguarding and the details, but we do have obviously we have our safeguarding team, and we also have a legal and governance team, and we also have a data protection officer. So they are obviously all across all aspects of data protection and information. So but I can take that to them and see if there are any other concerns or issues with those. With regards to the password reset issues, it was those users that have BT Internet and Yahoo, and it isn't GMS. It's basically the issue is with bulk email templates. So it would go through, but it would be going through after several hours. So that isn't a GMS issue that we can fix. However, I've posted a link in the portal as an article, which is actually not receiving emails. And it's and it's got step-by-step instructions there for email providers that are Yahoo or BT Internet, or if they simply just don't receive those emails, what they can do is they've got a few steps there. It's called their whitelist or their safe senders offenders list, and they can add GMS or our email provider, which is First Sports, to their own contact list, and that will actually stop that from happening. So there is a work around that, but because it's not a GMS issue as such, there's nothing further that we can, unfortunately, that we can do, but we can offer support there. And I do know that people that have used those steps, it does work for future, but you just need to obviously pass that on to parents from a non-GMS email, and then they'll be able to use that and set themselves up.
Okay.
And then I'm sorry, what was the issue in the middle? Because you had 3. Sorry.
Probably mum and dad, different seasons, duplicating their kids'
Yes.
records.
So what we're actually doing this season, actually at the moment, we've actually got a project on the moment which we're looking at the cross club search. So we're relaxing some of the rules that is making it less restrictive. So at the moment, the first name has to match exactly, the last name has to match exactly, it has to have a date of birth, and it has to have an email or a postcode. So what we're doing now is we're looking at ways which we hopefully will implement, and it will obviously be definitely for next season, but hopefully maybe this side of Christmas, but don't hold me to that, is, so say the names are Joseph and there's a Joe or a James instead of, or Jamie, it's going to look for the first 2 letters for the first name rather than the first name, so that will cover off quite a lot, which I think creates duplicates. And also we're relaxing the rule for you to be able to update fields in isolation. So should you have a record, because that's obviously part of the issue here, is the old legacy and bad data. And if you want to just go in and you've got one piece that you need to update, but you don't know the rest, so we know that you have to put in almost like fake information so that you can go ahead and put that date, update that record with the correct date of birth that you have or the correct email. It's now going to hopefully let you just update that one field in isolation, and then you can go off and update the rest, or the player can obviously log in themselves, or the parent can log in and update that information themselves. If you really concentrate on the email, then obviously the parent or the player will be able to log in for themselves, and they'll be able to update their own information correctly. So hopefully there's a few things come in over the next couple of months, and that will helpfully cut down on those duplicates being created. And also when people look to search, if they've got a record on the system, it will come up with a lot more, a better way of matching individuals basically for previous records, which didn't currently, or currently isn't at the moment.
What you're saying on legacy, so historically children used to need email addresses, so you put the parents' email address in there. Now they don't, but it doesn't like you deleting the information.
Exactly, so it will, that stops that now. So exactly, so if you go into a record and it doesn't have an email address like a child, at the moment you currently have to put in an email address if you edit one of the other fields. So we're relaxing that rule. So if you just want to go in and just edit the address because they've moved, you can do that in isolation. You don't have to put an email address in now to complete that transaction as it is. So yeah, so hopefully that will cut down on a lot of those. And we've also got plans for a pilot scheme for data cleanup to really focus on players. So hopefully that will cut down on legacy data as well. So more information on that will be coming out over the next few months on that.
Thank you very much.
Lots of info there to digest.
A lot of questions.
Yeah, so hopefully that's answered questions there, Nicola. So any more questions from anyone else? No. Colin, I've seen you've been on all these age grade webinars. Well done. I've seen been in a whole lot. Good work. Cool. I don't think that's it. There's probably just one thing just to touch on in terms of management of an age grade record, and we are looking in the near future to look at players 14 and above being able to manage their own record with parental permission. So that will hopefully help with that our age grade players at that particular age, and more so the 16 plus with affiliating as well. And Mark, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add around that as well.
Yeah, and I think what we've done is we've got a parent-led system, as we've put in the chat earlier on. We've realised, and good feedback again from some clubs about, and particularly those clubs, we find some inner city clubs where there's a lack of parental engagement and things. And you know, it's been on the chat today, how do we get parents to pick things up? Actually, and particularly at 16 plus, as Ian says, we do know that probably the kids are more au fait with doing this type of thing than the parents are a lot of the time, and clearly parental engagement reduces as we get towards the older teenage ages. So we're looking at how could we enable the kids themselves to be able to do that. So as Ian says, it's one of our next projects. We're looking at how could we enable those players, particularly the older teenage players, to be able to do this process themselves. Now, what that would require at the moment is a handover of ownership of that record from the parent. So we're looking at how could we do that if a parent isn't engaged. So we're looking at those options and things as well. So more to come over the next couple of months on that as well, because we think that will really help again in terms of the engagement of that person with their record within GMS, and particularly around renewal of affiliation and those things as well. And of course, it's really critical at the older age grade ages, because that's when we're talking about that transition to adult rugby, which we know is a big challenge, and us all being able to take them on that journey in the system as well as on the pitch is really important. So it's something that we're quite excited about, trying to find a way to do that means that once everyone finishes their under 18 year, we can keep in touch with even more of them and try and keep them playing into adult rugby as well, whether they stay around or whether they go off to university or whatever it might be. So yeah, really key piece of work, Ian.
That's great. And this is one more question that's come in, Mark, that would be worth answering, is just from Ken, just around why can't team coaches and managers accept the pending affiliations as they know their players better, rather than a club age grade registrar? And I know you're age grade registrar at your club, Mark. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, Chloe might want to chip in here as well. This is actually about permissions. So age grade registrar have a level of permission. A club could give more people that level of permission as well. And as per one of Nicola's questions just now, we have to be really careful about too many people being able to share individual and personal data. But you can, as a club, actually have a bigger team of people, and a number of big clubs have done this. They've given more people the ability to accept renewals, particularly of affiliations. So it's a quick job as well as new affiliations. So Chloe, I don't know if you want to add to that.
So yeah, as Mark alluded to, it is down to the security and permissions. It's also down to the role. So on the dashboard, when you log in, based on your registrar role, says 3, there's adult men's, adult female, and age grade. Based on which registrar role you have, or if you have all 3, those are the pending affiliations and the update notifications of renewals that you'll see on your dashboard. And that's a quick link straight into approve those. However, those pending approvals, they are actually on the player management dashboard, which if your coaches and team managers have level 3 permission, which as a club, if you decide to give them level 3, they can actually go in and approve the pending affiliations from there.
I mean, I get the roles and permissions thing, but I just see it's probably better that he's part of the coaches and managers role, or even at least the manager of that age group, because they're the ones that know the team and not somebody else that's at maybe at a higher club level. It just seems a bit of an odd decision, really.
Yeah, well, we can take that to one of our user groups and see if there's if there's national appetite for that, and we can make that change. But as I did say, if you want to give your coaches and team managers level 3, they can access the affiliations and the notifications of renewals, and they can approve those themselves under the player management dashboard.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. There, Graham, got your hand up. Good man.
Hi. it's become very obvious listening to the conversations, especially from Neil and Nicola. I'm junior mini coordinator for Saracens Amateurs. We've got about 400 junior mini players, and I'm having a devil of a job trying to get parents to buy into this affiliation system and to go through the process. I've put the emails out, I've put the links regarding the RFU portals, which I think are great and very easy to use, but I'd appreciate something from Neil possibly, and possibly Nicola more so, or Neil more so than Nicola, how you've been successful in getting that engagement with your parents and the whole club, because that's my issue at the moment, my problem.
Yeah, I expect we're obviously a lot smaller, so we know all our parents as such. So that helps a lot. Excuse me. So that helps a lot. But if you're not affiliated in our club to the GMS, then you can't play any matches because it's linked with our membership, and then obviously you wouldn't be insured. So we sell that as a package. As you need membership, you need affiliation to be able to play the matches, and there's nothing like a match on a Sunday to get them motivated to get the affiliation sorted.
Yeah, they're tying in with. I mean, we are looking at that to use GMS as a payment system as well. And if there is that connection, I think that would benefit us as a club, and I think would benefit the whole system. But it is something that's up in the air at the moment. So I'm just working with what we got in terms of how we get the engagement of people with the RFU GMS system. I accept what Mark said in response to my message in the text. We need to do it, else we could incur disciplinary from the RFU. And I think this is something I've got to stress to the parents and to the groups, that it's got to be done. No ifs, buts, or maybes. I think it's just got to be done.
Graham, do you communicate that to the coaches as well? Though we put quite a lot of emphasis on the GMS to the age grade coaches. We've made that them a priority as well. Yeah,
I do.
We've seen some good examples, Graham, with some of very large clubs taking adopting a hard approach as a club and driving that down amongst the team managers to parents around taking a hard stance along this. Around it is regulation, and you need to do this for little Johnny to play rugby. so ultimately that we have seen some clubs do it that way. Likewise, we have seen clubs take a softer approach and bit by bit and encouraging, but it depends on the clubs. On each club's different, aren't they? So I'm conscious of time, but I know there's one more question. So Philippa, one more question and we'll wrap up the session.
You're on mute, Pip.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on my phone, not my laptop tonight. So I'm like, where is it? Where is it? Sorry, I was out when it started. It wasn't a question, sorry. It was more just backing up that, I mean, I've been doing youth membership and registrar for about 12 years now. This system, I love. Everybody chunners about it, but for me, it's made such a difference to my life. I think, yes, it has its hiccups, but moving forward, that data's there. It's safe from a GDPR point of view. My question in the group earlier, and Mark answered, I know it's always been 45 days, in regulation 15, we used to call it the Lancs form. So we used to have a paper membership form. We used to have our Lancashire form. They were duplicated each other. So for me, like, we've been talking about tonight, we have jumped to purely in lockdown when we wanted to go paper free. Our registration is all on GMS. And that was my query. So I got this pushback to start with from probably coaches, saying, oh, you don't have to be affiliated for 45 days, but we've now stipulated, look, this is where we're getting our information, and we kind of do rightly or wrongly ask parents to join England Rugby, get an RFU ID, actually when they come back the second time, because if they're coming back, we want to start gathering information rather than having it in a book that goes soggy and wet in the rain, that you lose that page, lose that contact number, or you've got a load of people keeping contact numbers in their phones. So so we have said that we're in an inner city club, and we've had children that have come through the All Schools programme massively over the years, which you don't have the same parent engagement as they come as under 6s, under 7s. But my concern now from a safeguarding point of view is those parents need to know where their players are. Sadly, we have parents that might not know where their players are on a Sunday morning, but we need to know that they've taken the responsibility to at least do that initial membership. We've got a language barrier, so we've had to do things with the child translating. We've had to do it, you know, I've done it on WhatsApp, on video calls, you know, last minute before a game to get, you know, a Lancashire Cup game to get them on. But I think we've got to remember, we really do need to get these parents to buy in. You know, we want these players playing, and we'll do anything to keep these players playing because they want to play, they want to play. So I feel for you having 400. We've only got, 220 affiliated. I've got sort of 30 sitting there that aren't returning, but I'm keep giving them chance to return and following up with the coaches and send exit emails when they go. But I think we've got a mentality, unfortunately, that we have less parents sideline in some cases these days. And if we don't keep those parents engaged initially, then, you know, where do we stand in from a legal point of view in the long term when you are phoning them to say your child's in A&E, or when you do have a child left at the end of training and there's nobody to pick them up. And we've had that issue this season already. I had to get hold of 2 parents through GMS and ended up taking the child home with a coach because we couldn't get hold of that parent. So I think it is important to have the information right on GMS from as soon as they join the club. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And some good bits of advice from a couple of clubs there for you, Graham, hopefully to take away. But do reach out if you feel like you want to connect with any other clubs, and we can work with our internal teams to put you in touch with some key people and maybe some similar size clubs as yourself to talk through that a bit further, Graham.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. No. Thanks so much indeed. It's been very useful.
Thanks, Graham. And thanks all of you for attending tonight. And this session will be on YouTube in a few days' time. But thank you so much for joining, and really enjoyed the session this evening. Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers.